Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. NASA says that the Earth is burning up, it's red hot, and it's the highest temperatures ever measured. Unofficial records suggest that in recent days, the global average temperature was the warmest that's ever been directly measured. And they don't allow anyone to respond to this claim. I was a little surprised when I looked at this map which showed Wyoming red hot at a time when we were having near record cold. Let's take a look now and see if there's any credibility to this claim from NASA. This map shows all of the stations where NASA and NOAA had daily temperature data from 1891 to 1920. Most of the available data is from the United States. There's some from Western Europe and some from parts of Australia and a few locations in Asia. Without daily temperature data over most of the planet, there would be no way for NASA to determine what the global temperature was. This claim is looking pretty suspicious already. The next tweet from NASA said July 4th and 5th had the warmest global temperature since 1979, according to an estimate by the University of Maine's Climate Reanalyzer. But if we look at the University of Maine's map from July 4th, it looks nothing like the NASA map. NASA shows Wyoming red hot, but the University of Maine shows Wyoming quite cold, which it actually was. NASA shows the area northwest of India as being red hot, but temperatures were actually anomalously cool there. It's pretty clear that there's something seriously wrong with how NASA is using this map. And Ryan Maui explains what NASA's doing to scam the public. He wrote, NASA's climate shop pulling a fast one with this map. It's not surface temperature but infrared satellite imagery colored red. You can tell because the cloud tops are cooler and colored white and blue, especially with weather systems in the southern hemisphere. The next problem with this claim is that they started their measurements in 1979, which was quite cold. 1979 was the coldest year on record in Iceland. The 1970s were the lowest points of the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation. Earth was cold and scientists were talking about a new ice age. Science News, March 1st, 1975. The ice age cometh. The unusually beneficial climate of the past few decades may be degenerating, facing humanity with a new challenge to survival. On January 5, 1978, the New York Times wrote, an international team of specialists has concluded from 8 indexes of climate that there is no end in sight to the cooling trend of the last 30 years, at least in the northern hemisphere. Data from the southern hemisphere, particularly south of latitude 30 south, are so meager that reliable conclusions are not possible. Now let's take a look at what temperatures were where NASA actually has daily historical data, the vast majority being the United States. The hottest July 4th by far in the United States occurred in 1911, with a huge section of the country over 100 degrees. The heat wave of 1911 killed thousands of New Englanders and more than 40,000 people in France. The Boston Globe reported that on July 4th, 1911, Maine was 112 degrees, New Hampshire was 110 degrees. Temperatures like that are completely incomprehensible to modern Americans. The New York Times reported that during the summer of 1911, Greenland got up to an incredible 94 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty clear why NASA's starting their claim in 1979, the coldest year on record in Iceland, and they're ignoring the much hotter data prior to that. This map from Joe Bastardi shows what was actually going on with NASA's fake claims of record heat around July 4th and 5th. NASA showed that we were red hot here in Wyoming when in fact we were near record cold. Joe Bastardi's map shows that. Western Australia was very cold, but the NASA map showed Western Australia red hot. The real story of the claimed record heat were these anomalously warm temperatures north of Antarctica where it's winter. Instead of the temperature being minus 15 C, they were minus 5 C, so these are shown as being anomalously warm, but I don't think anyone would describe minus 5 C as being hot. The planet was not hot at that time. The regions around Antarctica weren't as cold as they normally are. As Ryan Maui pointed out, NASA is trying to scam the public. A common argument I hear is, how can you criticize NASA? They're the people with the right stuff who took us to the moon. But once again, that claim is baseless. The people with the right stuff who took us to the moon are also very unhappy about NASA's climate scam. In 2012, 49 former NASA scientists and astronauts from the Apollo program wrote a letter to the NASA administrator. We believe the claims by NASA and the Goddard Institute for Space Studies that man-made carbon dioxide is having a catastrophic impact on global climate change are not substantiated. NASA has been corrupted by politics. We saw this during the Challenger disaster, and we see it with their climate group. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on NASA's climate scam for 15 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki Upala, and the 4 new puppies on the web at realclimatescience.com.